Welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way podcast, where your host, Cassandra Crawley Mayo, helps you break free from obstacles and live life on your terms. Get ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and inspiration. Tune in as we dive into captivating conversations with experts and explore topics that will ignite your passion and drive. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Let's dive in.
Good day out there to all my listeners, and I'd like to welcome you to Is Your Way in Your Way. And this podcast, let me tell you about it for my new listeners out there. This is where we uncover fear, I would say habits, barriers, limiting beliefs, that self-doubt that keeps you from living your best life on your terms. And my name is Cassandra Crawley Mayo for those new listeners. And yes, I'm going to be your host, as I indicated. And today's story is actually going to shift the way that you see your own story. And we talk about topics related to personal improvement, personal development, and I'm also enable you to do some self-reflection. And I always pray about my podcast that I'm hopeful that for my listeners, for those who are listening, there will be somebody or somebodies that will say, you know what? Okay, if she can do this, I can do it. So therefore they start pivoting and they are able to do what it is that with them fire in your belly that's calling you to do something, but in the back, you just can't do it and you're trying to figure it out. So today, our topic is called Finding Purpose in Pain and Power in Faith. And our guest today, I'm going to introduce you to Avonley Lightstone. And Avonley, how are you today? And am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes. So it's Avonley, and thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. I want to ask my audience, what if there's scars that they've been trying to hide? You know, like things happen in your backstory. Like I know individuals where things happen to them and they didn't tell me until years later what was going on in their family and why they were like they were. And also, what if the parts of those stories were so painful that we're actually God's pathway to perhaps your purpose? So therefore, you actually lived it from an age of 3 years old. And your story is one that will shift, as I indicated, how people are going to see their own story. So what I'm going to do is to read a little bit of your bio so people understand what qualifies you to talk about what we're going to talk about. Okay. Um, Avonley is an author of Strength of Scars, a gripping memoir of survival, faith, and radical resilience. After losing her mother in a tragic house fire at just 3 years old, and then she was placed into an adoption shortly after, she endured years of emotional, physical, and mental abuse. Yet, through unwavering faith and a commitment to healing, you transform your trauma into a testimony. So, today you're going to share your story, how others uncover beauty and brokenness and reclaim their identity and find strength through their scars. And Avonley, let me ask you, when you tried to save your mom from the fire, right? Your dad, was it true that your dad wasn't around or he had an addiction or what was going on with your dad when you lost everything?
So during the time when my mom was caught, like she was making food and her sari, which is a very flammable material, caught on fire pretty rapidly. And my dad was home at the time, but he was just drunk and passed out. And when I went to wake him up and get him to let him know, like, hey, mom needs help, he just wouldn't respond. And that was just kind of like his lifestyle. We were in a poor area, and he was a painter. So like we had a big family, and there was just a lot of stress on him. And I think drinking was his way of coping. And he didn't realize like when you drink your life away to the point where you're unconscious, and you can't help a family out that's hurting, like
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing you can do there, especially in
Mm-hmm.
that moment. And so that was what was going on. He was in his own like traumatic event in his mind that he was
Mm-hmm.
dealing with, but it happened to be in an unnecessary time when my mom really needed help and he
Yeah.
wasn't responding. And then
Yeah.
I just felt like I needed to just go take care of my mom. And I just hugged her really tight and refused to let her go.
Okay. Okay. So you weren't an only child.
No, I wasn't.
Oh,
My parents had 9 children total. Many of
wow.
them were already like out to school, so they weren't home. My baby sister was with me, but my grandparents was taking care of her at the time, and I was just left home alone with my
Mm-hmm.
parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I just knew I couldn't go grab my grandparents at the time because my mom was needing the help right away. And
Yeah.
because she was like engulfed in flames, like she needed that help.
Right. Right. So your mom didn't make it, or did she?
Mm-mm. No, she didn't
Okay.
make it. After like 3 days of being in the hospital, she passed away and she was completely burned all over, completely. She was
Mm.
unrecognizable.
Wow, I'm so sorry. And after that, you were put up for adoption by your grandparents, or how did
No.
that? Okay.
So what had happened is I think there's good context right here. So when my mom and I were in the hospital, we just had to like I didn't have any sort of medication to kind of numb my pain. And so they
Mm-hmm.
had to like clean me up, tear like the debris, scrub the debris off of my back that I was burnt, and same with my mom. And I was very fortunate not being burned on my face or like the chest area.
Yeah.
So was then able to lay flat on cot for me to
Mhm.
just air dry. And
Yeah.
it was in that moment when my dad did come visit, my sisters did, siblings did come visit. But after my mom passed away at like 3 days later, my
Yeah.
dad stopped showing up. My family stopped showing up.
Yeah.
And once I recovered from the hospital and I was released to go home,
Yeah.
the only thing I do remember was going to pay respect to my mom, and then my dad placed me up for adoption. And I think
Uh-huh.
it has to do with the guilt of what had
Yeah.
happened, and he wasn't sober minded
Okay.
to help us
Okay.
out.
You said you grew up in a poor community. Were you in India? Where were you located?
hmm Yeah, I
In India.
was in India in like one of the biggest cities in the world, Bangalore.
Hmm.
And yeah, just in just a poor area at that time.
Okay. So when your dad put you up for adoption, or you were put up for adoption, did you still stay in India? Or did you leave the country?
So no, not at that time. So when I was placed up for adoption, it was close to where I lived. I
Okay.
was placed into adoption 2 weeks before he decided to put my other 3 siblings up for adoption as well.
Okay.
And I remember like a couple times we ran away from the orphanage to go
Mhm.
back home, which we did a couple times, and which
Mhm.
made my dad take us to a completely different location where we had no idea of our like geographical locations and how to get back
Mhm.
home. And
Mhm.
so once he placed us up for like a different location further away, then we just knew we couldn't go home after that.
Okay. So from that time and years ahead, I'm certain you endured emotional, physical, and mental abuse. Are you able to describe that now and share with the audience how you got through that at 3 years old?
Oh yeah, so like you're talking about when I was in India, like how I
Yeah.
overcame that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so honestly, I don't really remember a lot of the abuse that I went through when I was in India. I think what really started for me was the rejection of my dad when he stopped showing up to like help me like recover. And like in that moment, I didn't have anybody. And so I really did take in all the memories of what had happened when I was a child at that time. It wasn't until I was adopted to my new family was where a lot of the abuse happened to me. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was very fortunate to be brought up into a family where it was religious. So I felt like I knew God. And I think that was my saving grace, was knowing that even though I was completely, utterly alone and I was going through a lot of abuse, and I wasn't the only one. I had my other siblings go through this abuse. It was knowing that God was still around and that I could talk to him. And even though like as I was building my faith towards him, I was just, I guess, building my faith on him, knowing, okay, well, what else do I have to lose? Like I've lost everything. I lost my family in India, and I really don't. I was groomed to know that I'm going to have a really good family here in America, which, most part, like my dad was amazing. My adopted dad, he was amazing. And he was the one that brought a lot of love into the family household. But my mom was she was horrible in a lot of ways. And it was just really hard to just feel like you were anything. And so you were just always kind of hiding in the shadows and always competing against other children to just kind of try to get her love. And it was kind of disgusting pattern. And it's just not like the right way for children to try to get the love of their parent and feeling like, hey, you're appreciated, you're wanted, because every single child was wanting that. And many times I just happened to be the scapegoat. Any problem that would happen, it was always me that would take the brunt of anything that happened within the family.
So your adopted parents, they were in the States? Or okay, they were in the US.
Yes, here in Utah. I grew up in Utah on a ranching home, which was really nice because like many people that are going through a lot of abusive situations in their life, they don't have a place to like run away. And where we had a lot of land, I felt like I had more open space to just like run to and like talk to God. And that was like my safe place, was animals and being able to talk to God. So that was helpful.
Okay. Was there a pivotal moment for you during this time that enabled you to be the person that you are today? Like in that space, did you have dreams? Was it anything you wanted to do or be or any of that as you were growing up?
Ready to design your dream life? Join Cassandra Crawley Mayo's Create and Design Your Best Life workshop. Break free from self-doubt and obstacles and step into a life of purpose and fulfillment. Click the link in the description to register now. Don't wait. Spaces are limited. Start living your best life today.
Yeah, I would say there was a lot of times when I had mentioned in my book that I was very suicidal and I wanted to take my life many, many times. But there was just always this feeling that, hey, you don't know what your future holds. And you won't ever know if your life is gone. And it's always kind of been a mystery to me. Like, well, yeah, that would be nice to know if I will be happier. You start talking to yourself, and it's kind of it's fascinating me. So I kind of held myself from going forward with that action and try to, entertain the idea like, hey, I actually am enough. And I want to try to see what my life can be. And there's been many times where like I felt like maybe it was God that was sending like image into my mind whenever I went to sleep. Like, hey, like soothing me, letting me know like my mom was okay, and that she was around comforting me, even though like my adopted mom wasn't. And it was like his way of saying like, you're still seen, even though you can't see us. Like we're still taking care of you. And so I really like held on to that. And through that time when I was still growing, I think he was planting a lot of like visions in my mind, because there was a lot of thoughts in my mind that would talk about like, yeah, your story one day will reach some people, and just hang in there and just do what's right. And like, it's really hard to fathom, like, is my story going to be of value to somebody? Like as a little child, you just don't know. Yeah. But, you just put that trust in God, and you just kind of just obey him, and he just takes the wheel really and molds you.
Yeah. Now, who in your family introduced you to God? Where did the God?
Yeah, my parents were LDS, so we went to church every Sunday.
Latter-day Saints.
Yes, every Sunday, and we went we were very every single Sunday we went to church, and in those church meetings, I had many great people in that community that would talk about God, and and were just really great examples. And that's kind of like what I took in.
Wow.
And I think one of the amazing things about that church teaches is, hey, there's more to afterlife. And so that's what really triggered my mind was, hey, if there's more to afterlife, because the church teaches a lot about having your family together forever in the afterlife, and you need to be sold to in the temple. So with that knowledge, I just kind of knew like, hey, I'll see my mom one day, and I'll see my family in India one day if I don't ever get to see them in real life. It's just knowing that, hey, I'll see them again. And it was just really comforting to know that.
Okay. So it sounds like all of that sustained you. The relationship you had with God, the afterlife that you felt in your heart that you would see your family again. So that kept you going. And also you indicated, based on what you had gone through, you believed that there was somebody that, even though it happened to you, but the story could be translated to others to give them hope. And that's kind of, I'm assuming that's where your book came from. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Tell us a little bit. Is the book just basically your story?
Yes. So it's a lot about my story, about like a lot of the abuse that I went through. But then I talk about like when someone goes through maybe like a situation I have gone through, like here is how you might want to look at it in a different lens. So I kind of explain to the readers how to look at their trauma into something of like more prominent in their own life, and how they can be able to heal within their own journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it went, and I wrote this story. Actually, I never really wanted to write this story,
Oh,
but I went through this forgiveness with my mom,
okay.
um, and it was when I left the home, got married, and I got pregnant. Is when I realized there's a lot of trauma that I'm holding in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I thought, like, well, once I leave the house, I could forget about everything that happens. But
Mm-hmm.
no, it doesn't work that way. If you don't resolve the traumas or the pain in yourself, it will resurface at one point or another. And
Yeah.
when that happened to me was when I got pregnant with my first daughter, and I
Mm-hmm.
saw that I like just a lot of flood of emotion was coming out of me. And it was so overwhelming. And there was a lot of triggering that was happening within me. And I knew, like, oh my gosh, I have to fix this. Whatever this is, I got to take care of this because I don't want to lay this onto my child,
Yeah.
and have that repeating cycle over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I want it to end with me. And so that's when I did a lot of self-reflection, did a lot
Okay.
of healing, a lot of fasting, and trying to get to a point where I can, like, heal from the trauma and forgiveness. And forgiveness looks completely different to everyone. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, I felt like I needed to like try to make it work with my mom because I
Mm-hmm.
saw, like, the division, the fork in the road that was happening in our family, and the way she was handling it, there was going to be a great divide. And I came to her and explaining, hey, if we don't fix these things and if we don't say sorry to one another, like, I'm not going to hold it against you, but let's move forward, and create a really happy, like, family. Because I felt like, and I still strongly feel that if my mom would have made things work, like, our families and our siblings would have been really great towards each other, to the
Mm-hmm.
community, to one
Mm-hmm.
another. And she wasn't for that. And I tried to reconcile with her a few times, and it just got to the point where I said, no, I can't change you. You have
Okay.
to be the one to change you. But I did everything that I could, and I took that to God. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when God, because I was really frustrated. I'm like, what am I
Yeah.
supposed to do? What is this
Right.
forgiveness?
Yeah.
And he's like, just give it to me. You did all that you can, and just start seeing me as that mother that you always wanted, and
Mm.
give me your burdens. So that's what I did. I gave all my burdens to God and said, okay, I did what I can with this family. I'm going to just move forward. And
Mm-hmm.
in that moment, he lifted my suicidal tendencies. So I never
Mm.
became suicidal.
Awesome.
And he just kind of healed me.
Yeah.
And I think it's just when we continue to look inward at ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and try to heal ourselves and not keep those baggage in us,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not for us to take in,
Yeah.
and then we give those to God. God really helps us. He renews us. It's like he puts us in this refinery
Mm-hmm.
process where he just burn, burns off the impurities and renews you as that gold person that you are meant to be, that shining gem that we're meant to be. And if we just trust in God, knowing that he is there to, like, help us through these process, then we can become this gem and that he wants us to be, and we can help other people that are
Mm-hmm.
going through hard times, and we can be able to help our own self in
Mm-hmm.
our own lives, in situations or trials that we'll have in the future. We can handle it much better. And it wasn't a few years later, that's when he was like, hey, it's ready, you got to write that book.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, like during that healing process, I was writing everything down in my childhood. I didn't
Wow.
really think that would come into my book.
Yeah.
And I was writing letters that I was going to send off to my mom, but I never did. It was
Okay.
all just for me. And then when he
Mm.
told me like, hey, you need to start writing this book,
Mhm.
and because it's not for you, like
Mhm.
your story is actually my story.
Right.
You're
Mhm.
like, I'm just the co-author of the story. He's the author.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
yeah. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and
Mhm.
write the story. I had to fight a little because I didn't want to. I'm
Yeah.
very uh, private person. I don't like to share
Mhm.
a lot of things that happen in my
Sure.
life. And
Sure.
here I am now getting social media and sharing my story, but I think
Mhm.
it's for the good. I've been seeing so many wonderful, amazing people that have shared their stories, and
Wow.
I have been really grateful that my story has impacted them.
Wow. Your story is a true testimony. And I am so grateful that you found God in your life. And it's not by mistake because he wanted you to tell your story, because of him. And also for individuals that are listening, based on what you've been through, I could actually feel, I felt the sadness. Then I felt the joy. I felt you smiled, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna give this to God. I'm forgiving her. I'm not gonna forget it, but I've tried. I've done my part. Now God is like, okay, let me do my part. And then from that, you birthed a daughter, and you were a little girl one time. And it's kind of like, if you think about all the things that he has done in your life, is for a purpose. And you identified that. And from that, that's where your book came. And sure, I think you are private. If you think about all the things that you've gone through, um, you could have been trapped in that story, just be there. And what your journey is not linear, when because I was going to ask you, what are some of the steps that you use to get through this? You talked about your relationship with God. Your book was healing. Sounds like it was very healing for you. You confronted your mom, your stepmom, kind of share. You wrote letters, but you didn't send the letters. So would you say, are there any other practices or tips that you can provide to my listeners that have gone or going through a journey like yours? Because I said in the beginning, before we even came on, I think we all have trauma. The trauma is just different. So is there anything else that you
Yeah.
did that's helping you get through this?
Yeah. So, in this process that I was going through a lot of healing, I came up with this method. It's called the I shed method, where it's like it's just an acronym. I stands for your self
Mhm,
identity. You have
mhm,
to go within yourself and identify the trauma or the hurt that's happening, and what point of your childhood or um, that you went through this pain. Because
mhm,
the first thing you have to do is you have to recognize that there is a problem. If
mhm,
you're in denial, that's gonna just it's gonna take I'll say it'll just take a longer time for you to heal. You
mhm.
have to recognize that there is a problem. And once you're not in that denial state, then you look within yourself and
Okay.
say, where was I hurt? Who did I
Mhm,
hurt, or who hurt me? And how did
mhm.
that hurt? You're just pinpointing that.
Yeah.
And then what you're doing is you're taking the shedding process, which
Okay.
is an acronym. Shedding is surrender.
Mhm,
You're surrendering what had happened. You're no
mhm,
longer taking that burden or that pain that you went through, thinking that
mhm.
you have to take that. Like, you're the garbage. You're not a garbage. You recycle that and try to renew it. Okay, so you can't heal on your own strength.
Okay.
So sometimes in that moment, you need to have God. God is your like biggest source. He's going to help you. And then try to find good people in your life that you feel is safe. You know, whether it's a mentor, a teacher, or even a therapist. Someone that you can trust, that you could just feel like you could talk about. Because when you purge out like whatever pain you're going through, what you're doing is you're now going to the healing process. You know, and that's the next acronym on the shedding. Healing starts with when you face the root causes, your childhood wounds, the trauma, the neglect, rejection. And through that healing, you can journal like I did. You journal these emotions, and then rather than numbing it, you want to either like read really good books, self-help books. There's a lot of amazing self-help book. Maybe changing your habits and patterns, changing things around where you start seeing your life somewhat worth. You know, you need to see the worth within yourself. And then what I do next is you go to the E acronym, which is exchange. And in that, you are taking what you had, like you're taking whatever addiction or the trauma, and you're exchanging it with something different. You're replacing it with like life-giving habit. Whether it's like prayer, movement, worship, serving somebody else. Because I know when somebody is going through, like at least with me, when you're going through some traumatic times where it's just really hard to move forward, when you go through those moments, the best time is to give. Like, don't worry about yourself. Give during those times when you're healing. And as you give, you will be rewarded. It's like an exchange. Okay. And then you go through SHED, discipline.
Right.
Okay. You're going to repeat a lot of the cycle over again. Discipline will help you you're changing the patterns again in your mindset. And you have to repeat these process for you to overcome a lot of the feeling. And then over time, it gets easier depending on how much you want to go with it. Because sometimes some people's situation can be more sensitive and painful than somebody else's. We know who we are the best and what we can handle. So just recognize your body. If you're moving way too fast, take, rest. It's okay to rest, relax, and then move forward.
Wow. I love that acronym. Powerful. That's powerful. We talk about the I, the recognition and the surrender part, the healing, the exchange. When you talk about give some examples of giving. Like, what can one give?
So even just listening to somebody else that's going through like a problem, and maybe you can, what I've always done is when we go through a lot of like situation where we're in this burden.
Yeah.
I think what's really hard for humans is we're not saying hello to each other. We're not making eye contact, and we're not like seeing another human as, hey, you're something of value. So when you want to feel valued, why not just when you go to the mall next time and somebody passes you, like, get out of your comfort zone and say, hey, you have beautiful eyes. I love your smile. I hope you have a good day. Oh, you'll see, like, I did this the other day with a man, and he was just passing like a flyer out, and I took the flyer and I said, hey, oh my gosh, thank you so much. You have wonderful eyes. And he looked at me and he's like, "You really think so?" I'm like,
Oh.
"Yeah." And then like
Mhm.
after we left, you could see a spring in his step.
Mhm.
He was so jolly, he was so excited, and he was confronting more people with um, just that upbeat attitude. So you just
Mm.
never know, like when
Yeah.
you give that assurance that you're wanting,
Yes.
you can make a big difference, and it will come back to you in tenfold.
Wow. This is all sounding like is your way in your way. So in other words, get out of your way. And you were an
Yes.
individual that you didn't want to stay in the state of the posture that you were in. So then you decided, okay, I'm gonna have to do something. Did anybody help you through this, Evelyn? I mean, did you have a coach? Did you mentor or who did you
No,
have? You just did
I
this on
I
your
Yes, I just really I gave this to God because there was many times that I asked for help and my siblings asked for help and we didn't get the help that we needed. So
own?
in
Mhm.
my mind, I just felt like I'm not gonna get the help or the problem
Uh,
that I have is way too much for somebody else
okay.
and they won't believe me. So I just couldn't take that on. And so
Hmm.
I took it on myself and I just followed. Like when you start gaining a relationship with God, God
Hmm.
like feeds you information and thoughts in
Yeah.
your head on what
Yeah.
to do. And I think with him being my teacher
Mm.
is what really helped me. And it gave me um, exposures of where to look, what
Mhm.
books to take in. But
Wow.
I would tell you, like anyone that's going through this, if you have a friend or if you have a therapist and you can trust them, please go for them because
Okay.
it will help you much faster and quicker
Mhm.
in your
Mm.
healing journey.
Wow, what a
It's
courageous
important.
young lady. That's a powerful. Your story is powerful. So I have one
Thank
last
you.
question for you. If you could speak to your 3-year-old self when you were 3, that old version of yourself, what would you tell her? What would you tell the women that is listening to you now that are had this trauma, gone through something, just feel stuck, look great on the outside, but on the inside, they're just falling apart. What would you tell them?
So I think one of the things I learned just through this healing process and what I would tell my 3-year-old self is don't be ashamed of your scars. Your scars one day will
Mm,
tell a story. And that I titled my book Strength of Scars for a reason because it
mhm,
applies to anyone and everyone. Like the
mm,
scars, whether you have internal scars or external or even both, like
mhm,
our scars will tells a story.
mm,
And your story, whether you see it as joy, like take your trials and trauma as look at them as joy and do your very best to
mhm.
always always know like God's going to use my story or one day I'm going to share my story and it's going to empower somebody else because
Yeah.
our stories can empower one another. And if we
Wow.
just see that our scars, like even God, I love to use this example, even the perfect man has
Yeah.
scars and
Yes.
he is not afraid to show them. He actually
Mm,
shows them for us to
mhm,
believe in him
mhm,
and his story still reigns and
mhm.
will continue to reign. So if we
Yes.
could use his example, and because he's our beacon, we'll
Yep.
follow him. Like
Mm,
we have our own stories that we can say, and we have our
uh-huh.
own scars that we can share, and we can empower one another. So just don't
Wow.
don't stay stuck in your traumas.
Mhm. Wow.
Do your
Wow.
best to always look at the rewarding parts of it and what you
Yeah.
can turn yourself into.
That's beautiful. One thing that I could see in you is and you individuals gravitate to you. It's something about you, that people like, wow, I'm not quite sure what it is, but yet it's the God in you. It's the things that you've been through. It's kind of like the title, finding purpose and pain and power in the faith. And that's actually what you've done. So kudos to you. I am so, so proud of you. You are an amazing young lady, and your contribution to the world is going to be limitless. It's going to be limitless. So I just thank you. Tell my audience how they could find you and your book.
Okay, thank you so much, Cassandra, for those thoughtful messages
Sure.
that you just sent me. I really appreciate that. The best way that you can reach me is just go to any of my social media at Avonley Lightstone, and just follow me. And if you're curious about my book, you can get I believe like the first 2 copies of my book for free if you get on my avonleylightstone.com, my website.
Okay.
And just enter your information. I'll send over a free copy of the first 2 chapters of my book.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. I will always remember I shed. I love that acronym. That's wonderful. And that's something that you are doing. And I know it's a work in process, but you have started and you are on your journey. And I'm so proud of you.
Thank
So
you so much.
with that said, my listeners, I know. And one of the things that I said is this particular podcast, you're going to start seeing your story differently. You are the way you see, you're going to shift the way you see your own story. You've heard Avonley story, and think about your story. And you're going to shift. Listen to this podcast over and over as many times as you need to hear it for you to pivot and be the person that God has ordained you to be, because we're all here for a reason. So again, Evelyn, thank you so much. You were a joy. And God bless you. God bless my audience. And as I say to everyone, bye for now. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you've been enjoying our empowering conversations, make sure you don't miss out on future episodes of Is Your Way in Your Way podcast. Stay in the loop with all the latest episodes. Join our mailing list over at CassandraCrawley.com. And before you go, hit that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe now. Until next time, let's get ready to live your best life.